how Central Florida is helping Ukrainian amputees. You're listening to The Wrap from Central Florida Public Media. I'm Joe Mario Pedersen, in for Brendan Byrne. Ukrainian amputees are learning to walk again in Orlando as soldiers are outfitted with prosthetic legs, but the nonprofit Revive Soldiers Ukraine says it's receiving more double amputees. Now it faces an uphill battle when it comes to funding its prosthetic rehab program.
Ukraine is no longer on the first on the channels, on the news. People forgetting about the war that's happening, and even though it's still very active, and as I said, like every day Russians shelling Ukrainian cities, like seriously every day.
We'll hear one Ukrainian story of recovery. That's ahead on The Wrap, the big stories this week from Central Florida Public Media. But first, these headlines. Floridians will decide come November whether the right to an abortion should be enshrined in the state's constitution under the landscape of a 6-week ban set to take effect next month. The state Supreme Court not only approved the abortion ballot referendum language, but upheld Governor Ron DeSantis' 2022 15-week abortion ban, triggering 30 days until the 2023 6-week ban goes into play. The proposed constitutional amendment would make it so no law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viability. The wording of the proposal was challenged by Attorney General Ashley Moody, arguing it was deceitful. Michelle Herzog is the director of the Pro-Life Action Ministries of Central Florida. She feels let down by the court's decision to allow Floridians a vote on an amendment that threatens unborn children.
So it's like a two-edged sword, that you want to be happy, but and celebrate, and at the same time, you just know how dangerous this amendment is.
Laura Goodhue is the director of Planned Parenthood of Southwest and Central Florida. She says the court's approval of the ban will have a severe effect on clinics and women's health. Still, she's hopeful for November.
For women in our state, this could be a public health crisis if the voters don't go to the polls in November and don't affirm that government has no place in our bedrooms and no place in determining if and when we can start a family.
The court's approval of the 15-week ban also triggers a 6-week ban, which Governor Ron DeSantis signed into law last year. There were over 84,000 abortions in Florida last year. That's an increase of 2,000 abortions compared to 2022. The governor suspended Orlando District 5 Commissioner Regina Hill after she was arrested last week on charges of fraud and elderly abuse. Central Florida Public Media's Molly Durig reports the city's next step will be to arrange a special election to elect Hill's temporary replacement.
Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer says he hopes to hold a special election for Commissioner Hill's seat Tuesday, May 21st. Whoever's elected will assume the role temporarily until Hill's criminal case is resolved. At Monday's council meeting, Michael Lincoln McCrate addressed commissioners, saying he and other members of Central Florida's disability community were deeply disappointed by the news that Hill allegedly mistreated a 96-year-old woman in her district, stealing $100,000 to use for herself.
I don't understand why one of our very own commissioners would even do something like this.
This coming Monday, Dyer says City Council will come together again for a special meeting to keep the process moving forward so anyone who wishes to qualify to run for Hill's seat can do so. Molly Durig, 90.7 WMFE News.
An Orange County grand jury has decided not to charge a former Orlando police officer who shot and killed 26-year-old Derek Diaz downtown in a parked car last July. Prosecutors say the grand jury does not believe charges against former officer Jose Velez are, quote, legally appropriate, and the case is closed. Velez, the bike patrol officer who shot Diaz, has since left the police department. In a statement, OPD says it will now conduct an internal review. Prosecutors say Diaz failed to comply with the officer's commands. Video shows Velez ordered him to put his hands on the steering wheel, but Diaz opened the center console. Police said at the time it looked like Diaz might be retrieving a gun, but there was no weapon. Diaz was the father of a 5-year-old girl. After the shooting, his family pressed the city to improve police training. These stories and more on our website. Visit cfpublic.org. Black wealth has increased in recent years across the country, but continues to lag behind other racial groups. But in Central Florida, there are indicators showing some counties are faring better than the national average when it comes to black wealth, but not all. Central Florida Public Media's Talia Blake dives into the numbers this week. Hear that conversation on our website. Visit cfpublic.org. Ukrainian amputees are learning to walk again in Orlando. Soldiers arrive seeking prosthetics and rehabilitation after suffering complex injuries from the war with Russia. The nonprofit Revive Soldiers Ukraine says it's receiving more double amputees and now faces an uphill battle when it comes to funding its prosthetic rehab program. I spoke with one Ukrainian soldier with the help of translator Olena Stone, warning this story does contain sounds from the battlefield.
Силуети понизили, там по нам стреляют.
That's the sound of Russian gunfire. 6 months ago, 24-year-old Dmytro Krasnovsky was fighting in the Kharkiv region of Ukraine. He was wearing a GoPro camera capturing the moment when a grenade landed near him. His legs were riddled with shrapnel and had to be amputated. He was told he would never walk again.
You got it. You got it. You got it.
3 months later, this is the sound of Krasnovsky walking across the room of prosthetic and orthotic associates in Orlando using 2 prosthetic legs and 2 crutches.
The most difficult ever for him was to make that first step.
Working with the Revive Soldiers Ukraine group, Krasnovsky is walking again.
So during that second month, he really tried to engage all his muscles, all the training, exercising, to be able to make that. And he made the first step, the second was easier. The third one is easier, and then so on.
Krasnovsky is one of 5 soldiers currently in Orlando receiving help. RSU has locations all over the country, but the Orlando location specializes in prosthetic legs. RSU relies on donations and sponsorships to outfit amputees, but donations have waned as the war stretches on. It costs about $50,000 to outfit and rehabilitate a single amputee, according to RSU President Irina Discipio. A double amputee costs $65,000. Discipio says RSU received over 1,000 requests for help last year, but was only able to help 40 people.
Ukraine is no longer on the first on the channels, on the news. People forgetting about the war that's happening, and even though it's still very active, and as I said, like every day Russians shelling Ukrainian cities, like seriously every day.
Discipio believes the war between Israel and Hamas has shifted most Americans' attention away from Ukraine, meaning less money for the amputees.
The war in Israel, of course, it's get up to the news, and everybody's like, oh, now we have to help these people, and maybe it's get old. I don't know. When the war just started, like, I don't know how people found us. People just want to like find anybody, any nonprofit that helps Ukraine.
Discipio has been following up with old donors to try and rally more funds, including one donor who once gave $50,000. But what Discipio hopes for more than anything is,
I hope there's no future for this program. I hope there's no people who needs our help.
Almost.
Back with Krasnovsky, he's struggling to walk, but overall, he's just happy to be alive and says he feels lucky to be here. As for his future, he's not interested in going back to Ukraine.
Being here, he would be able to bring awareness to the war in Ukraine, find more support, and especially help people like him, wounded soldiers who can come here and get prosthetic help here in the United States. Because in Ukraine, unfortunately, people, especially with high amputations of limbs or arms, they can't get help.
According to an Associated Press report from September, the same month Krasnovsky was injured, more than 20,000 Ukrainians were living with missing limbs. Last month, Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky said 31,000 Ukrainian soldiers had been killed since 2022. Joe Mario Pedersen, Central Florida Public Media. That's it for The Wrap this week. This podcast is produced by Central Florida Public Media with assistance from news director Latoya Dennis and digital director Ryan Ellison. Brendan Byrne is back next week. I'm Joe Mario Pedersen. This is The Wrap.